Hi everyone, it's Dave here. Hope you're doing okay. Just before I start, I just want to say how much I love September. It's my favourite month. You often get some of the most beautiful weather in the UK in September, particularly the first half of September. You're sat in the garden as the sun has gone down. It's perfectly still and it's still pretty warm and it's just lovely. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was, do you know, I have always been a very diplomatic person. I've not always been this individual who wears his heart on his sleeve, who is very, very passionate about his beliefs and who is willing to elucidate those beliefs to the wider world, via this YouTube channel. I've never been a political activist. I like to think that I've always been somebody who's fairly considered, can look at both sides of an argument, will deliberate extensively before reaching a conclusion, and once having reached that conclusion, will do so in a very quiet and relaxed manner. Now, I did get to the stage in my life where there was two things that happened. One related to politics and society, and I'll come to that in a minute because it involves Brexit and then this whole COVID shitstorm. The other one relates to how I perceive myself, and the two are just juxtaposed, are interlinked. But I'd always, growing up and probably well into my early, even mid-30s, wanted to be somebody who everybody liked. And I think probably not everybody liked me. I'm sure some people didn't, but I think most people did like me. I was likable, relatively inoffensive, unless I had a drink, and then I was definitely very offensive. And I think that was maybe why people liked me as well. But I wanted to be liked, and I made sure that I did everything I could to be liked. And that would often involve struggling to say no to people and trying to please everyone, never pleasing myself, and that kind of theme that I suppose a lot of people will relate to. Until it slowly dawned on me actually that wasn't working for me, and that I maybe wasn't standing for values. I wasn't living through those values, and to do that, once you really start imbuing your life with values, you will divide opinion. And once you back that up with being more confident and assertive in what you're saying, you're definitely gonna divide opinion, and you will create a situation where some people will respect you even more, and others will either be afraid of you or will actively dislike you. And you'll even get some who'll set out to get you. That is the position that anybody will put themselves in once they have that realization that in being a nice person, you're not really standing for anything unless you decide to be a good person as well. And that means trying to live through values authentically with courage. So that's what I've tried to do, and I'm not saying I've done it successfully, far from it. Check out have a look at the playlist I've got called Introspection. I do try to remain introspective at all times, and to check myself and to see the areas where I need to improve. But that I would say one area of my character that I have really worked on is assertiveness and imbuing what I say and what I do with some values that I've worked hard to define. So that's the first thing. Now the second one, I remember the moments when it dawned on me that this country, the United Kingdom, had a serious problem, not with the media, not with the establishment, not with the politicians and anything like that, although quite clearly it does. But take that as read. Let's take that as read that politicians are corrupt and the media doesn't tell the truth. But with society. And what makes me say that? Well, we had the vote for Brexit on the 23rd of June 2016, which effectively was an attempt to try to to answer some underlying concerns a lot of people had with regard to the United Kingdom and how it identified itself and to what extent it was European, and concepts such as sovereignty and immigration and the economy and all this type of thing. Now, Brexit's not been properly reflected on yet, not the vote, but what went on after the vote, because straight after it came the, as I say, the COVID shitstorm. But what shocked me about it was not the result of the referendum. If you want to know, I voted to leave, if you're interested. But the egotistical, narcissistic, childlike, infantile response, and again, not from the establishment, although of course they fanned the flames of it, but from many individuals in society, and it culminated in over 6 million people signing a petition to revoke Article 50, which was to stop Brexit from even happening. So I realised at that point that I worked it out, 13% of the electorate in this country, in the United Kingdom, 6.1 million or 6.2 million people, had confirmed themselves as anti-democrats. My vote didn't matter as much as their vote. I voted the wrong way. I saw this as a really, really serious problem and a manifestation and a representation of a society that had become very, very sick. There was a deep problem within the recesses of society. This was borne out by the fact that so many people stuck two fingers up to people like me and other the 17 odd million others who voted for to leave the EU. And it was at this moment, as I was already on my, I don't like the word journey of personal development, but was starting to realise that I needed to become more assertive and, you know, imprint myself on the world in a more effective way. Then this happened, and I think I've always been, you know, aware of society, and I've always paid attention. So I was saying, right, there's a problem. We have a problem with our own people. There's too many people in this country who don't accept democracy. What else is it that they're not gonna? You know, I started seeing patterns. I started seeing, already the creeping censorious type of culture. I worked in a university at the time. I saw the politicisation and the indoctrination that was going on there, with the safe spaces and all that kind of thing. And I started to piece together various different other things, health and safety, and the obsession with health and safety in the workplace, political correctness that is now called woke, which is communism, if you want another word for it. Let's call it what it is. Anyway, I started to piece together and fit together, and I could see that the picture that was emerging was one of a society that had been hijacked and that had become enslaved, but had become very, very sick and wasn't cherishing the values that I thought were the values of the United Kingdom and imbued by most people here. Free speech, democracy, and concepts such as national sovereignty as well. That was an interesting one. And respect, really respectful debate, because the behaviour of many people in the aftermath of that referendum was, frankly disgusting and shocking and appalling. It took a number of other democratic events to eventually for the UK to extricate itself from the European Union. And even now, I'll give you an example of what Dave the diplomat would say, and what Dave the increasingly pissed off, running out of patience. I don't know what else I want to call myself. I'm not going to label myself, but it's not a time for diplomacy at the moment, for reasons I'll come to in a minute with regard to the COVID thing. But even now, there's people who can't accept Brexit, and supermarket shelves, they'll say, and there are, I've noticed myself, some supermarket, there's issues with supply chains, also issues with staffing. Well, that's Brexit, isn't it? There you go, that's Brexit. So it's anything to prove a point, except hold on, what if it's not? So the diplomat, and I am still diplomatic, would say, well, yes, possibly, yeah, let's discuss whether that's a cause. Are there any other issues, though, potentially, that are leading to that scenario playing out? Because there's always multiple factors leading to an event. You can't just explain complex problems with one solution. But I see people talking about it now, obsessing again, wanting to be proven right, and still not been able to get over the fact that the UK did leave and has left the European Union. And it is emblematic and symbolic of a very infantile slant and angle to our society. So the Dave now, who is, as I say, increasingly running out of patience, just looks at it and laughs and goes, for fuck's sake, people, I mean, you are ridiculous. Come on, let's talk about something else. There's more important issues at stake here, or at least broaden your awareness of what may be contributing to the problem that you're talking about. So if that makes sense. Now, of course, the second thing that happened was so there was Brexit, and then, of course, straight on to I'm not going to call it the COVID crisis. I'm going to call it the crisis that was created as a result of the measures taken in the name of COVID. And I've talked a lot about this, but I realised pretty quick that this was not a time for diplomacy. The stakes were too high, and once I figured out what was going on and how much our freedoms were under threat, how much our free speech was under threat, how much our physical freedoms were under threat, our bodily autonomy was under threat, how much the fabric of our culture and our country was being torn to shreds in a way that was completely unprecedented, and how the future of all the children was at stake. The future of all of us, but particularly the children, was all at stake. Well, there was no longer a time in my character to be diplomatic. There was, in terms of trying to talk to people and trying to get a conversation going and trying to hear what their understanding was and to try to respond to. But as we know, that didn't really happen, did it? Because of the brainwashing and indoctrination that took place. So it wasn't a time for me then to continue to be diplomatic and quite quiet and quite reserved. I had to commit to being very, very vocal on this issue, passionately vocal, wearing my heart on my sleeve and putting myself out there, which was really, really scary. And I'm just wondering, with what I'm saying here, is anybody else? Does this resonate with anybody else? Is anybody else able to say, yes, this was the same path for me? Or can they provide different examples of when they've gone from being a very diplomatic person to somebody who's very, very vocal on a particular topic simply because it is far too important not to be? I'd love to hear your thoughts. For me, as I say, it was a combination of me developing my character in a way that I wanted to, combined with these socio-political issues that were playing out in society. Obviously, just Brexit in the UK, but the COVID thing in the whole Western world. And it's interesting how I was only thinking about it before. I was just going through it in my head about how I did spend so much of my life as a diplomat, and I am a diplomatic person. I'm good at looking at both sides, drawing conclusions, taking in the evidence into account. I've had jobs that have required me to do that, and I still, will always read. I would like to speak to people from across the political spectrum, if that even exists anymore, left and right. Come on, I don't think it does it? Yet another dividing tactic. But people with different experiences, different backgrounds, different views on society, different views on education, and this type of thing, different views on how a health crisis should be dealt with. I have always, and I will always, love to talk as it broadens my mind. But in terms of putting diplomacy at the top of my top 10 values, it's not even in my top 10 anymore, because I have things such as truth and freedom and courage and authenticity and risk-taking and all this kind of thing that is there instead. So anybody else resonate with this, understand what I'm talking about and can relate to it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I hope you can't really see me anymore because it's going dark, but that might be a good thing. Anyway, that's the video for today. It is gorgeous out here on this early September evening. Absolutely lovely. That birch tree there is still in full leaf, looking splendid. Very regal tree that is, very ornate, beautiful tree. Anyway, let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.